debut fantasy romance novel Ledge has been translated into 3 languages. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
My first question is, what drew you to writing?
I think I was always just a prolific reader, and as I grew older I ventured more into any romantic genre that I could get my hands on. And eventually I had read enough of them that they seemed a little, most of them seemed quite formulaic to me, which is why they were so comforting. And I started to think that I could do it. So I think it was sort of a false sense of security, a little bit of overconfidence. And I always really enjoyed English in school, and I enjoyed story writing in general. So it was kind of just like a natural thing that I fell into.
I think as readers, we sort of want our own stories to be told, and
Absolutely.
After reading so many books, like everyone's like, I think I can do it.
Yeah, we end up having big imaginations. So I think, I just naturally wanted to create my own story.
From going from like creative writing at school, did it shift your perspective when you actually were sitting down to write your own novel?
Maybe initially. I wrote my first full-length novel when I was about 17, 18. And went in with absolutely no idea about how to craft a story and how to plot a story, how to structure it, and was really just going on vibes, as they say, and was kind of just fumbling my way through and cutting my teeth. And I really thought that I'd created a masterpiece. Like, I really thought that I was definitely going to never have to work in my entire life, as we all do at that age. And it's taken me since then really to like kind of hone it and craft it and learn more. And I'm a little bit self-taught, but I sought a lot of courses outside of that. It all kind of meshes up into how I write today, I think. Yeah.
What was inspired the Glacian trilogy?
At the time, I was reading a lot of like survival of the wilderness stories, and I really wanted to read one that was about a woman, which I hadn't done at that point. But I like the dystopian effect that survival of the wilderness has, and so I thought that was a really easy thing to put in sort of a dystopian world into a fantasy world. And I'm from the Gold Coast and I hate the cold. So the picture I had in my mind was sort of this tundra biome, and it was very icy and hostile and difficult to survive just based on environmental factors. And then just for kicks, I thought, what if we made it even extra hard to live by putting like really hostile human beings in there as well, and then fantastical creatures that want to kill them. And I thought it would be a really good opportunity to kind of showcase a very fierce woman who'd been honed by this environment her entire life. And that had an axe and knew how to use it, and was a little murderous and was a little bit morally grey, or a lot morally grey. And I thought it would showcase how pragmatic women are, and how we really in a crisis situation often thrive. And so I really wanted to write a story about that.
I think now we're seeing a lot more like strong female characters come out, and the authors aren't afraid to make them morally grey, which is fantastic. Like, the best thing to see, instead of like the damsel in distress, we're seeing them
it's trending out. My favourite thing about that is that we're not only having these characters who are morally grey and fierce and all of those things that you spoke about, but that we're making them that way unapologetically, and we're making sure that their character arc isn't going from someone who's unapologetically morally grey and making them soft and gentle and kind and demure. We're sort of keeping exactly.
What we need them
it's like we're not correcting this behaviour.
This is what we're standing by. This is what we need to
Precisely,
see. What is your writing process?
I'm a pretty heavy plotter, so I have sort of an overarching outline, and I sort of approach that every day with what chapter am I writing right now, whereabouts in the scene am I, what's the most important dialogue that needs to occur for these scenes, and I sort of start there, and from that, like the rest of the story, or the rest of what I need to write from that day takes shape. So I usually approach a writing session by sort of going back to the drawing board and making sure that I know what it is that we're doing today, whereabouts in the story that we are, and I'm a little bit meticulous with it. I'm kind of a chronic plotter, so I'm always going back to that drawing board and spending a good half hour kind of consulting it before I actually begin writing for the day. It's also a great excuse to procrastinate before I have to actually start typing, so that's sort of what I do.
Did you plot your whole trilogy before you started, or did you go book by book?
I plot the whole trilogy. Often bits in the middle are missing, and I know that I'll find them along the way. But I do know the So I sort of have like, the main points in all 3 acts in all 3 books. So I know where the story is ending up in the end, and that makes me a little less anxious to write because I know where the story is going. It's often just the finer details in between that I might not have at the time, and I make up for them as we go along. So yeah, I usually have the entire story in mind.
Do you sort of go through your story knowing the characters first or your world first?
I usually know my main character first. From my main character, I then know the world, and then from there, I know the rest of the characters. So yeah, that's usually how it tends to track for me. But it's more character driven than anything else. Yeah.
Do you have a challenging aspect of your writing process, or is it more just getting started?
I think it's just like a motivation to get started. I used to be fantastic at it. I find that I'm tragically losing discipline the older that I get, and I think it's just because life gets busier, and I've got 2 kids and a family, and all these other things that sort of sometimes take precedence. But I try to stay disciplined. I have all kinds of methods and things to try and keep myself on track. So I employ any and all of them to make sure that I'm sitting down and writing every day. And that's my rule, is that this is my full-time job now, and I need to treat it like a full-time job. And so 5 days a week, I should be writing. Yeah.
Do you use music or anything to help you in your scene writing, or do you have it?
I do use music, but not during writing. So I'll quite often use music before I start writing for sure, or if I feel a little stuck or just like a little uninspired, music's a great tool, and I have always used it. But while I'm actually writing, I actually need complete silence.
Yeah. I think I would get too distracted listening to music.
Oh, I know,
like instrumental, I think I'll still just groove along to it.
I'm way too tempted to start karaoke or something if that happens. So yeah.
What advice would you give to a writer working on their first book?
I would say a couple of things. The first is to make sure that you love what it is that you're writing and that you're not simply just following a trend. And quite often we fall into that trap where we sort of think everyone likes this at the moment, so I'll write a book about that. That's fine, but only if you yourself love it. And not just what you think everyone else is going to love. You need to think about what you love. And the second thing is think about how you're going to market that book now. And I don't just mean trends and things like that. I mean, when you finish writing this book, are you just going to be shouting into an empty void? Or do you already have people who are quite interested in listening to it already? So I would just start by contemplating those things now. Are you on social media? What are you doing? What are your plans with this book? Are you wanting to be traditionally published, self-published? Do you want no one to ever see it ever? Like, what are your intentions with the book? And sort of start thinking about how you might market it.
I think if you're following the trends, by the time you finish writing, the
trends are gone,
and so you may as well just write what you want.
Yes, and they're incredibly unreliable.
Yes.
And even if you do catch it's more than likely going to be then a flash in the pan. Yeah.
Did you have an important lesson you've learned at being an author?
Standing up for myself, I think, has been a hard lesson. I'm sort of a people pleaser at heart, but I'm also a type of person that does not like to make waves, and I detest confrontation. And I'm traditionally published, which means that there's a lot of people that have their finger in the pie when it comes to my book, and I'm the stakeholders of my book. There's a lot of stakeholders in my book, because there's a lot of people that stand to make a profit from it, because I'm not self-published. And so because of that, I initially stepped back and listened to perhaps the louder opinions take center stage, and I've learned to kind of stick up for this, just certain things that mean a lot to me and that I would like to have a say in, or like to have the only say in. And so I'm slowly learning how to use my voice, I suppose, for good and not for evil, and to make sure that I'm not standing on business on every single point, but just picking perhaps the one or two things that I don't want to compromise on.
Did you always want to be traditionally published, or did you want to go the route of self-publishing?
I always wanted to be traditionally published, simply for the reason that I am not a business-minded person. Like I said, I detest confrontation, and that doesn't really lend itself to someone who is business savvy. It never occurred to me that I might self-publish. I barely even knew what it was when I started writing. It was certainly not something that was so prominent. Now it obviously is, and when I wrote my first published book, Ledge, I actually had the intention of self-publishing it, thinking that would be my way into the industry, but we pulled it at the 11th hour because I had a book deal on the table all of a sudden. So I was almost self-published, but then ended up being traditionally published anyway. So yeah, it's just all sort of worked out the way that I hoped it would, thankfully.
That's really good though.
Yeah.
How do you stay connected with your readers?
I'm very, very loud and proud on social media, so that's sort of my main conduit to my readers. I'm on TikTok and I'm on Instagram, I'm on Threads. I make lots of silly content on there. I love the online community on there. I feel like I've really sort of handcrafted my corner of people that get me and I get them, and it feels nice and safe there. So that's usually how readers can reach out to me and me to them.
I think the online community and Instagram and everything is the best place to be. Like, everyone's so supportive and shouts about book love as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always good to see authors interacting with everyone.
Yeah, exactly. The great thing is that we can curate our own corners of the internet that are safe and have like-minded people as well.
And my final question is, who's your biggest supporter?
My husband, for sure. My husband's name is Michael. He actually started making social media content with me to sort of help me along. But him and I are a very, very strong team, I feel, and he's definitely someone who, I know everyone says I couldn't do this without him, but truly I actually couldn't. He's been a financial support for me, as well as the emotional, mental, and everything else support. We have 2 kids together, and this is not only a full-time job, but it feels like sometimes 3 full-time jobs, and I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't have some kind of support system in the background.
We always see the support system. It's even better when it's the closest to us.
Absolutely, yeah.
Take the pressure off us.
Oh, 100%, yeah, it's invaluable.